I'm your host, Riem Zin Labidin, and you are listening to Tech Tag Podcast. Today, our guest is Roksolana Diachuk. She's a big data engineer at Captify and a speaker at technical conferences and meetups. She's one of the Women Who Code leads in Kyiv, in Ukraine. Let's meet Roksolana and learn more about her journey. Hello, Roksolana. I'm glad to have you here.
Hello, I'm happy to be here as well.
Thanks for your time. Tell us fun facts about yourself.
I think the most fun fact is that I have a twin sister and we studied at the university together. So we kind of went all the way in our engineering careers, and now she's data scientist and I'm big data engineer. So we are kind of in the same field, but doing a bit different things.
Nice. So during your whole studies, you studied together at high school and also university, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And how did you got inspired or got passionate about big data?
It was kind of accidental. I just got into Women Who Code community, and I met a lot of people who were data scientists at the time. And there was this kind of French school by one of the universities in France, in one of the Ukrainian universities. So professors arrived and they gave a few lectures during the week. And we decided to go, and that's where I heard about big data, data science, and it sounded really exciting. And after that, I kind of got into online courses, and it went from there.
Nice. And did you face some challenges during your studies in the beginning?
Yeah, for sure. Probably the most challenging thing was for me to learn another programming language, since I was Java developer at the time and I was switching to Scala, and it was probably the most challenging thing. But another one is probably that I worked a bit on the infrastructure tools, and it was during the courses I did on big data, and it was kind of a totally new thing for me. Before I was just coding and thinking more on the solving some algorithms and building solutions, but not about the infrastructural side.
And you started learning about them in parallel with your studies or after your studies in your first jobs?
In parallel, kind of usual situation in Ukraine that students from third year studying fourth year get a full-time job, and we kind of try to work and get to the university a few times a week. So it's kind of a normal thing, but it's still a bit complicated to do, especially depending on the workload at work and the amount of labs or just modules or whatever else we need to study at the university. So it's a bit different for everyone. But for me, it was hard to combine both of them because at my university, we had to attend quite often. And therefore, I needed to get there at least 3-4 times a week from work and then get back to work and do some tasks there. So it was quite complicated.
It is full-time job or part-time, or it is part of internship?
It can be different. Sometimes it can be an internship, but most of the times people just get to like junior level position and it's a full-time job. But managers know that like this person is studying at the university, so it's okay when they can arrive later during the workday or miss some meetings, so they need to reschedule some meetings. So it works in such a way. I had an internship in the beginning, so it was in the evening or on the weekends, which was fine for scheduling. But after I got the job after the internship, it was like a full-time thing. So they just knew that I had to go to the university sometimes, like a few times a week.
I see. Yeah, and I think working during that time will help you to learn more quicker, because there will be people who can guide you at work, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you start at a job that they gave you, for example, a project and that you have to figure it out by yourself from zero? Or there is always someone who guided you?
I think there was always someone who guided me. It just depended on the person, how much they were involved in this guidance process. Like my first mentor and kind of a team lead of a small team, where I was working on the project. He was like around all the details, so I didn't feel like I was just doing something alone and that I wouldn't have any help. But I also gave enough freedom in terms of the technical choices, so it was a balanced way of both working on some problems and having someone to ask about those problems.
I see. Getting a mentor or having a guidance will make the path shorter because, yeah, otherwise you would need to figure it out by yourself. And after your studies, did you continue working at the same company?
Sort of. So I spent there almost 2 years, which was my fourth year of the university and the fifth, which is master's already. And I had only half a year left to study to just finish my diploma. And that's when I switched the job and went to the company where I work now. And it wasn't like much of the studying at the time. I was just building diploma in my free time on the weekends, so it wasn't the same as before when I had to go to the university. It felt like less of the university and more of work.
Is there anything changed after university comparing to your job before? For example, did you ask for promotion, or is there something that maybe you thought to make some step further in your career?
When I switched the job, I just felt more confident as a specialist because I knew that I had like only a few months left to finish university, and it wasn't the same as studying before. And I already had enough experience to get promotions and just be confident in my skills. So it really helped. Also, I think it was a lot about the attitude of other people. At my first job, like most of the people knew that I was a student, and a lot of other people who joined at the same time were students. So I think because of that, it was a bit harder to get like more, in a way, personal attitudes that you're growing faster and you need to get promotion faster, for example. It was more like the same for everyone who joined at the same time because we were all students at the time. While when I changed the company, I felt like I was more in control of my career in a way that I can like ask for promotion, that I can just go to the higher position, which I did when I switched the job because I didn't get promotion at my previous one for quite a long time. So it felt like now I'm just a specialist, like working in the field. Before I felt like 50-50 in a way because I was still studying as well.
And your previous job was working in the big data field, right?
Yeah.
At that point in time, you started Scala already?
Yeah, I was writing in Scala mostly.
And do you remember some challenges in your first job that you have encountered?
I think there are a lot of challenges with just starting to work on new projects, which is like always hard in the beginning. But I think I felt like I required a lot of time to learn something. But in reality, in comparison to other people, maybe not as much because I worked really a lot and I studied a lot in my free time. So I felt like basically it's hard to start something new, like you need to jump higher in a way. So infrastructural stack, like I started to work with Kubernetes, I think a year after I joined on one of the projects. So it was challenging as well. But I guess the biggest challenge was about people, which I didn't encounter as much before during internships and university, that sometimes people kind of made it harder or they organized processes in not very comfortable way, which instead of simplifying work, kind of made it worse.
In which way? In technical way or in the way of communicating?
More in the way of communicating, and in terms of processes like code reviews, specific meetings in Agile, some of those might not be well organized. For example, in my team, we had like stand-ups before and a few more meetings probably, and that's it. But we didn't have like some retrospective discussions of what's going on, and everyone felt like they were doing something alone without any connection to anyone else. And at some point when we needed to build a connection between our functionalities, it was very hard because no one knew what everyone else was doing. And we also had totally different experiences, and there was like nothing in terms of time and processes invested to kind of build this bridge between one another. So on the project where I worked for, I think, the last year at the company, it was like that, but it was a bit hard in terms of processes.
I see. And in your current job, do you feel that things are getting smoother and better because you are now more experienced?
Yeah, I think that, and it's mostly about ownership, like being able to say that that's the mistake that I did, and knowing that people would react normally to that, and that it's possible to fix that. Because my first job, it was hard that someone might yell at me or say something unpredictable. So it was a bit like complicated to learn how to do these things, which are just hard in general. And also a bit about taking more responsibility like myself without waiting for someone to do that, which can also be hard. Like for example, now I switched teams, and in my previous team we had like this ownership map where everyone in the team owns a specific amount of modules in the code base of the team, and owning means like improving them, defining their architectural changes, fixing the issues. And when it was introduced for the first time as an approach for teamwork, I was kind of worried that what if I'm not going to be good enough to define these like architectural decisions and possible fixes, but eventually just became a habit in a way, and I realized that it's great to kind of take these challenges step by step to grow here.
Nice. Earlier, you mentioned about a colleague, like someone yelled at you. Doesn't sound right. Why was it that way? Why that person thought they are allowed to do that? Or
I think just in general, or like observing many people in tech over time, I would say that there are some few characters, I call them, that people that can be like very bright personality in a way, but doesn't always mean that it's a positive thing, especially for people that work with them. And it's kind of not often that you can encounter such people, but it happens. Like it happened at my previous workplace. And I think that such people, just as he did, were kind of in a way entitled because they felt that they had enough experience to teach others and tell them what to do. And it was probably also around like feeling more privileged in a way. Like for example, when I just met him, he said that he like against women in tech, although he knew a lot of women in tech and he kind of respected them, which was a bit weird, like a contrast if you know successful women in tech and you think that they are awesome at their job, but at the same time you still think that it's not okay for them to be in tech. It's a bit kind of contradiction here. So it's complicated to work with such people.
Yeah, it's toxic. Like when you every day has to work, you have to work with him. Yeah. And are there some other challenges that you think you have experienced just because you were a woman?
Yeah, as I mentioned, like there are some people who may be explicit about their opinion about women in tech, or some of them kind of implicit because there can be some code of conduct or rules in the company, so they won't say this directly, but you might just feel it in their attitude. So I think that in general, I could progress faster in terms of promotions in my career if I would be like a guy, just because there are a lot of people who are managers and they judge by the gender as well. And I met this multiple times, and it's really weird sometimes when they I notice that sometimes male managers ask for more from women engineers than from men, kind of like set higher standards. And I notice that quite often, maybe because they have this stereotype that women like work harder and try to achieve something harder, and that's why they kind of push it there. But it at the same time, it's unfair because it looks like men can be more relaxed in their job, which I notice quite often. Like I could discuss with my colleagues the same manager, and they felt completely different about him, although we are working like in the same team. So I think these behaviors are also very hard to work around, and it's something that should be managed by someone else as well from the side, or like higher on the higher level in the company.
Yeah, there are few women in tech. What do you think the reason?
I think it starts kind of earlier than getting a job from school, or even earlier when we set standards that only boys can work on something technical and be interested in computers while girls can't. Like, for example, in my school, I think from my class, only 4 people, including me and my sister, graduated and went to study in tech. And one of us also was a girl. So basically one girl aside from me and my sister, which is not a lot. It's like a very small number of people who are interested in tech. And also in school, when people say, mostly teachers, that like women should get married or think about having a family instead of getting into tech, which I also heard quite often. Like when I first started programming at school, and I did some mistakes, and there were things which were like hard for me. A teacher could say that like it's not a big deal, it may be harder for like girls, and it kind of offended me at the time, although didn't understand much like why, because I wasn't into feminism or something like that when I was at school. But I felt like it was unfair as well, that kind of why it's harder for me, although I'm just studying the same as everyone else.
Yeah, they made like a stereotype that only men can do this, and it is weird because really it is the same for anyone. They can study programming and work in tech in general. Yeah.
Yeah, also kind of have an example of my brother who were into computers. He's older than me by 8 years. So the first computer like appeared at my home because he was into it. And he started to study programming quite early, but now he's not into programming at all. He's more like into management, and he thinks that programming is quite hard, while, for example, me and my sister are on the contrary more into programming. So it doesn't depend like on the gender at all. It's more like on the interests and background and skills.
Yeah, exactly. And if someone is interested about something, they can learn it. And in any field, like anyone else can do whatever they are interested of. It's not, it shouldn't be limited because of the gender, for example, or anything related to who you are.
Yeah.
And I also think that the reason that there are less women who choose this major because of the lack of role models. It's like now I'm grateful that they started. There are people who started to be publicly shining through different platforms, and this inspire other women. And I think when women speak up. And I believe there are many women are interested in tech, and they are learning programming, etc. If each woman will be visible in social media, for example, it has a lot of impact on other women. I encourage every woman to go for it and to be a role model for others.
Yeah, it definitely works that way. Just last week, one of the CIO, we have a great woman CIO who is also like a role model for a lot of other women in the company, said that it's great that I'm speaking at the conferences because people outside of the company can see that there are women engineers there who kind of can present. And at the same time, I heard the story from my colleague who before he joined the company, kind of Googled what this company does and found my talks, and he saw that it's a great presentation of tech that we are building at the same time, like diversity of the workforce. So it definitely works in such a way that sometimes we don't even think about it.
Yeah, this is really nice. And you are also one of the organizers of
Women Who Code, yeah.
Women Who Code. Can you tell us about this? Is it a meetup or an organization?
It's a global organization. There is headquarters are in the US, in Atlanta, as far as I remember. So they cover like, I think 70 cities or something like that. So there is like a small community in each city. And in some cities, there can be like thousands of people. In some other cities, hundreds, depending on how many women are there and how tech is developed in that region. And in Kyiv, it started like almost 5 years ago. It's going to be 5 years next year. And I joined like also totally accidentally just to kind of volunteer. It sounded interesting. And now we grew in a way that we're kind of remember of the first years as a startup when we had to do everything. We organized meetups, we looked for sponsors, looked for speakers. So it was a lot of things to do. While now we have like a lot of sponsors that support us, a huge team, around like 15 people. And everyone does something else. And aside from meetups, we have like a mentorship program with, I don't know, like at least 50 people who were there. So we scaled over time. And now it feels totally different, but at the same time, it's a really rewarding experience to see how it changes the tech community in Ukraine as well, because we found like so many women who were speaking at our events, were just coming to our events that now when someone asks to like recommend someone to speak, I always remember someone who was speaker at our events, and they ask like, do you know only women in that sphere? And I'm like, I know a lot of women. And when someone can't find like women for their conferences, we always in the community say that we had so many speakers that we don't even know like men in this sphere. For example, data science, we only know women who are speakers at our
This
events.
is nice.
Yeah.
This is really amazing. Are there still talks and mentorship programs in Women Who Code?
Yeah, we went online in 2020, and for now we are still conducting it in the online format. So we have a few online meetups every month on totally different topics, because we all have like different directions, like data science, front end testing, and all of that. So different events on that.
This is nice. It's like this is how
empowerment, you mean?
Yeah, how empowering women,
yeah,
and other women will get also more encouraged to join. This is very nice. Do you have advice for women who are interested to study anything related to tech?
I would say that it's okay to try different things, because some people sometimes say that we kind of wasted this time going into this direction, but it shows over time that all kind of experiences that we get around tech, being like different kind of developers actually help us to become someone else at some period of time. So it's okay to doubt yourself and kind of try different things. And at some point, it's going to be quite easy to understand what you want to do, but it's going to be hard without trying anything. So I would definitely recommend trying different passes, different things which can be trendy or just interesting in general, and getting to understand whether like you like to do it or not, and only after that you make some decision in terms of the career path.
Yeah, nice. And do you think there is a way for people who have companies already and who are interested to have diverse teams? Do you have also an advice or some tips for them to make their company more inclusive, to make others feel really welcomed?
In terms of hiring, they could kind of write it out about it explicitly, like in the job position, that we are like building inclusive culture. So at least it gives the understanding for the candidates what kind of like environment it is in this company. And also regarding hiring, I think it's great to try hiring in a diverse pool of candidates. It's one of the things that my company is currently trying to do, because we are introducing kind of like blind CV review. So you don't know what the gender of the person is aside from the technical skills, but it kind of adds up to the challenge whether it's going to be a diverse pool of candidates or still mostly men. So I think a great solution here is to probably partner with some communities which have diverse candidates and something like that around local region, like my company does as well. So I think it's very helpful. And also kind of promoting those people in the company which represent these diverse backgrounds on a more explicit level, so that others, when they would want to find out more about the company, know that there are people of different races there, different genders, and it will give like a great understanding about that. And as for building inclusive culture in the company, I think it's kind of a long way. There are a lot of things to do, but in general, I think it's important to give everyone a chance to voice their opinion and to learn from each other. Just last week, we had this thing that we do every year in my company during the Day of Peace. It's called the Reflection Day, where we have a library of diversity inclusion resources, and we just spend the whole day like studying, watching some movies, reading books, and after that we discuss what we read and how it changed our opinion about something. So I think it's a great way to promote some resources like that within the company and give some time to educate people in the company and help them to educate themselves as well.
Yeah, it's good tips and advice. I attended some of your talks in Scala community events. Yeah, I remember it was about Kubernetes, and I like your way of presenting your slides and also the story that you are telling, the way how you explain. Is there someone who inspired you, or something that makes you think about getting started to give talks?
First of all, thanks. It was very nice to hear that. So I didn't have a plan of becoming a speaker. I would say that kind of just happened. I had a lot of examples of other women at the Women Who Code community, and before I started to speak, I think I was an organizer of events for more than a year, so I kind of saw how it happens on the background in a way, and that's why at some point I thought that I might try as well. And I had a few people who were very inspiring for me, like my friend Helen, who is now director of Women Who Code London. So sometimes it's kind of fun how we have some connections, and then some transitions in the career happen, and it's fun to have someone to know like from other cities as well then. So she was given a lot of talks more on the like C++ environment, infrastructure, and not that many women work in this sphere. So I thought that it's quite exciting, and I always loved her talks. And she told me that at some point you're going to be there speaking as well, and which I didn't believe at the time, but eventually it did happen. And I gave my first talk at Women Who Code Kyiv meetup. It was just a local meetup at one of the offices. And after that, I decided to try giving talk at conferences. So my first conference was Scala UA in 2018, I think, yeah. And that's where it kind of all started. And after that, I decided to try this and that, and just happened.
Cool. I joined your talk in Lyon in Scala IO and then online in, I think, Functional Scala and also Scala Love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. And also, I was very excited to know you. It's in person because I remember I followed you before I joined your talk, and yeah, I was happy to know you.
Same.
Thanks. Cool. I have another question. What do you wish you had known?
I think to kind of believe more in myself and my skills, which I didn't do at the time, like a lot of heavy imposter syndrome when I thought that I'm not going to achieve anything, especially when I was looking for my first job. So, and also not to kind of hurry to get to some goals, because I think I moved really fast in the beginning of my career. And like a lot of people notice that as well, which might be like positive for promotions and growing fast professionally, but it's not very good in the long run, because career is more like a long marathon than a short one. And therefore it's kind of good to work on not only your skills, like in terms of technical ones, but also take care of the mental health. It's a bit hard later when you can't work as much as you would want to, because you feel like I used to work that much before, but now I can't do that because it's hard on my health, or because I don't feel like, because I feel bad after working that much. So it's probably more important to kind of take it slower, because at some point it's still possible to achieve those goals, but maybe a bit more time would be needed to do that.
Yeah, especially about taking care of your mental health, also time management, to manage working and resting and take care of yourself. Yeah.
And also, yeah, prioritizing, because sometimes I think, especially in the beginning of career, it's hard not to take all the chances which are given to you, because you feel like it's the first and the last time I get this. But then it's hard to manage all of that, especially if it's something outside of work, like speaking at conferences, for example, and taking too much of those when there is too much work at the same time.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks a lot for your time. I enjoyed our conversation.
Me too.
Thank you.
Woohoo! I feel really empowered right now, and I got inspired after talking to Roksolana. I hope that you also enjoyed our conversation and learned from this episode. You know, every one of us can participate to create an inclusive and safe environment, and this will change the world for the better. I'm looking forward to our next episode with a new guest and a new inspiring story. Until then, stay safe and stay tuned to our next episode. Tic Tac, tackle the inspiration.